everybody, you're listening to and watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in, or if you're watching through the live systems streaming in. And we're back with you. We took last week off because this fella, if I'm pointing the right way, passed the Arkansas bar. So congratulations.
I did.
You've now got 3 beautiful letters and a period after your name, like I can do. And Steve's going to have to go to law school now to stay on the show.
I guess.
Yeah, so, how do you feel?
Relieved more than anything. Yeah. So it's just one of those things. Like that test is such a weird test. You just don't know. But for me, like, I went back to school at in my 30s. So it's not just same. So it's not just that you're fresh out of college. This is what you're going to do. For me, it was okay. Like my family depends on this. Like I need to do it. There's a lot of weight there. I've got people that I want to help. I've got like a mission that I'm on. And so for me, it's just like, okay, like this is something I can accomplish. And, from a kid from Podunk, Arkansas, who probably wasn't ever meant to do much, to be able to get the first lawyer in my family. I think I'm one of the first people to ever get I've got a cousin who's got a doctorate degree. But I'm as far as like upward education, like just not something that happens in my family. So it's very, very cool. Like very, very, very accomplished. I'm ready to get to work. I actually get sworn in tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
So cool.
Very cool.
That's so cool.
I have to share a picture of me getting sworn in at some point.
Sworn cool. At or sworn in?
Sworn in.
I also got...
how the hell did you get yours so quick? I had to wait 9 months for mine.
Yeah, but you graduated from law school in a place where there were people. I'm in Arkansas. we had like, there was like 30 of us. No, I think there was 300 or so. I think that took the bar this time, but it's still not a big number. I've got friends in Atlanta and Philly.
There were 300 people who took the test in my facility.
Oh no! Yeah, like there were there. Yeah, it's not a big.
My attorney number is 2,700, so I don't know how I land. I think it was a. And again, like your attorney number, in New Jersey they hold your attorney number whether you pass the bar or not. So that's really kind of shitty too, that you have an attorney number you didn't pass the bar. So I'm like 2782. So I don't know, but again, I'm also in a state where you have 2 neighboring states. There's a lot of people take the Jersey bar. So
so my friends in Philly and in Atlanta, they don't even know if they passed yet. They're having to wait till October.
I was first week in November when I got my results. Yeah. So
low populace in my state, so you get things pretty quick. So, but yeah,
that's good.
I am officially a lawyer, esquire, an attorney. So it's been a long road. I'm excited.
Farewell, JD.
Never gonna take another fucking multiple choice again. If I can help it.
Yeah. Ooh.
Why did they call them briefs if they take so long?
Right.
Yeah.
Briefs belong on the floor, I'm convinced.
Mm-hmm. Well.
Maybe.
Boom, chicka. Anyway.
Yeah. All right, so we're here to talk comic books. We also got to talk to you guys because it might make sense for us to do this again next week. Because I know the week after that is really bad for me. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. I think it's bad for everybody. Although I am on vacation that final week of September, the whole week, because it's my birthday a week from tomorrow. So I took that Friday all the way to the next Friday because I can.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
going to piss so many people off.
To figure out my whole vacation thing. I've got to take a vacation soon.
Yeah.
I just have to. I think I have 17 days from last year I have to burn off until before December 31st.
Yeah, that's coming up quick. It's only 3 months away.
And I haven't tapped into anything this year. I won't come close to it until like December. So.
Oh yeah, you got some time off.
Yeah, I also get like a decent amount of day. I mean, I think I'm up to like 30 days. So
yeah,
yeah.
Use them.
I'd like to,
You
but
can't take PTO with you.
no, you can't, which really sucks.
Oh.
You can't. You know, it really does suck. But
so I'm not getting vacation time coming up, but I do want to throw this out that I am going to be meeting with our really good friend Brian, not Brian from the show, but Brian that we know from the EOC community. We are meeting up next Saturday in Memphis for Memphis Comic Expo.
that's cool.
So I am Brian Newberry, if you guys know him from the social media, all that fun world. So or if you are a listener of the Comic Book Bears and you are going to be at the Memphis Expo, reach out. Let me know you're going to be there.
Yeah.
Like, I'd love to shake your hand, see you in person.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we should also mention that Steve and I made the judgment call not to do Baltimore Comic Con this year.
Yeah,
sadly, yeah,
it just wasn't going to work out. But I will be at New York Comic Con, and as professional, thank you, Reed. Thank you very much. You made me very sad for a while, and then I got.
That was a long time that kept you sweating. That was so.
Yeah.
Took forever.
Yeah, and the thing was, like, the last 2 times I've gotten the pass, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah.
And now I have a pass, and you know, if anyone needs a 4-day pass, a sold out 4-day pass to New York Comic Con, please hit me up on Facebook before I put it through Light, their official resale, which I don't think will be a problem at all. But I'd rather keep it in the family, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great for me to get up there before. Yeah, 4 days in New York. Oof, I can't swing that now.
Yeah.
So, but I am.
Steve, another thing is we're both traveling for work again, so it seems that there's some wheels that are getting back to turning normal again. I don't know.
Sadly,
yeah.
I see. I know you love.
I love traveling.
Yeah,
I absolutely love it.
Yeah, for me, it's not so much like I
love it.
I know it's not that I don't like the travel part of it, but the fact that there's so much stuff at home. I got my dogs at home. I got my cat at home. I got my husband at home. You know, for me, traveling.
Take care of the cats and the dog.
Well, I know, but it's it's always a lot easier when it's the two of us.
They're for.
Know that. They're for pet care. That's what husbands are for.
Yeah. All right, enough personal yabber about us, but good things. Let's just say there's relatively good things happening.
Hercules.
Yeah. All right, Steve, what do you want to do first? You want to do news? You want to do Geek Gets? What do you want to do?
Well, let's do news pretty quick because we don't have a lot. And they're pretty short. So Bill pointed this out earlier today, and I thought it was kind of crazy. But they posted some of the solicits for December. And for DC, and one of the ones that stood out to a lot of people, and Bleeding Cool wrote about this as well, is that they are celebrating Stan Lee's 100th birthday, and there's nothing so far that we know about from Marvel that's been announced for this, which is kind of surprising, because when you think Stan Lee, you think Marvel, and not so much DC. But back in early 2000s, I think 2001, 2002. Stan Lee did work with DC to sort of reimagine some characters and basically the DC universe as an Elseworlds kind of universe, where he reimagined a lot of these characters. I wasn't reading comics at the time, and I don't have a lot of history with that, but I think, Bill, you may have?
Yeah, there were a series, I want to say, of 8 or 12 one-shots, prestige format, and for what they were fine. I mean, he was assisted. He had immensely talented assistants in terms of artists. If you see the artists that were there, Jim Lee, John Romita, Ken McGuire, Will Simonson. I mean, just top-notch names in art. And as a diversion, they were fine. I mean, there's things like his version of Sandman. I don't think is something that anybody at DC would come up with, but somebody who's been drenched in the Marvel style. There's the Justice League was like a far more organic formation than I think the regular Justice League story had. But they're like a fine, nice little diversion. Nothing that none of them would walk away with a fan saying this is my favorite comic of all time. But for someone who I guess at that point was in his 70s and doing something different, I think it's worthwhile. And I do believe there's an omnibus that collects all of that too.
I think you're right. I think I may have seen that because Stan Lee at that time, he was doing a lot of stuff outside of Marvel. He was working with Stan Lee's universe stuff. Like there was some other independent comics that were out.
With
that he did.
Boom. With Boom, there was like a Stan Lee universe. So there's he did something with Archie with the Mighty Seven.
Oh, cool! Yeah, I didn't know that.
He did dip his toes with other companies for the period after he was. Let's just put it this way: no longer Marvel exclusive.
Yeah, but the cool thing about this is that it is an anthology, so it's a one shot, 96 pages. We were joking about this. Maybe they round up to 100 with the ads and the extra covers and stuff. But basically, they got a who's who to contribute to it. Basically everybody. I mean, you've got Steve Orlando, Kelly Jones, Mark Waid, Jerry Ordway, Stephanie Williams, Becky Cloonan, Kelly Hamner, Jim Lee. Like basically everybody is contributing either art or story or both to this, and that's pretty impressive, and I think it's pretty cool. Of course, now, it's like, well, what's Marvel going to do? And maybe they'll just have like a year of celebration for 2023. Who knows? But I just thought it was very interesting, as did we all, that DC kind of is the one sort of kicking off the Stan Lee celebration this year.
Yeah, so, I doubt that's an intentional diss. I'm sure.
Oh, no, not at all. It's
just a little strange that the announcement came first from DC, and I wouldn't be surprised if Marvel had something planned for January, if they're kind of moving it up now.
Probably. They're like, oh, we're going to release this now December 30th instead. But yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. And then D23 took place just this past weekend.
Before we, on that point, before we get too far ahead, so part of me thought about this too, and I agree that it's not intentional, but I think there may be some effort to move Marvel beyond the Stan era and have him not be the show point. I mean, so you had that book that came out last year. You had a couple things that I could very much see them not stand on ceremony, because I don't know if they have to pay it's Stan Lee, so they very well could have to pay the Stan Lee estate for any use of him. So I don't know. So that's what got me about that. I was like, okay, there may be something actually like technical here that's why they're not doing this, but I'd be curious to see if there's a reason other than just they're lost in editorial.
Yeah, it could just be a timing thing. Who knows? Or it could be something a little bit deeper. But yeah, we'll see what Marvel comes out with, because I'm sure they'll have something. But the next big thing, of course, this past weekend, the weekend of the, was it the 10th, 11th, 12th? 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. D23, Disney's big annual sort of festival of media, basically, and celebration of themselves, happened. They brought up some more interesting tidbits and little things for Marvel and MCU fans. Specifically, they didn't show any footage or anything, but they did show a poster with who's going to be in the new Thunderbolts movie. So they officially announced it with the cast. They also talked about Secret Invasion coming up, which is the new series, and they did release a trailer at the same time. Yes, nobody knows about it. Secret. But the one thing that I think really kind of raised our eyebrows a little bit, and I know a friend of the show, also had his eyebrows raised a little bit here, and we were all kind of giddy about it, was the new Werewolf by Night Halloween special. Randomly, it is dropping next month. It's just going to be a one-off special, at least right now. Black and white, campy as hell.
Yeah.
Featuring sort of more of a horror vibe, but a campy kind of comedy horror vibe, which hopefully will have some cool scare moments, but is set to feature Werewolf by Night very prominently as part of the story. So that's going to be pretty exciting, and that was unexpected. I mean, nobody knew.
The thing that I was interested in that, and this, I have to say, this is a character I'm not incredibly well versed in, and I doubt you two either.
No.
The ins and outs of Jack Russell, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is kind of prequel to the Jack Russell story, because they don't really name anybody in it. Since it's pretty clear it takes place in the 40s or 50s from the
potentially
saying potentially, like you said. I
mean, who knows? It could just be black and white for the ambiance.
Yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of one of the conceits of it.
Yeah. So I'm excited for it, and again, because I wasn't expecting it, I think this will be it'll be a fun diversion for October. We do have David joining us. Hey, David.
Hey, David.
Hey, David.
David will be at New York Comic Con.
Yes, go and see David at New York Comic Con, and tell him how awesome Nottingham was, because it is super awesome.
So back to Werewolf by Night, is it Taika Waititi that's doing that? Like, because the trailer kind of had a Taika Waititi vibe.
I don't know. I actually don't know too much about it.
Had an announcement about their creative team.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see who did it, because it felt very Taika Waititi. It just, in the, like you said, the campiness of it, and the way it's broken up, there was very much a vibe there. I'm excited about it. I've wanted them to explore. Well, and like they're hinting at Midnight Suns, and so there's a whole stretch that could tie into this, especially one rather green character feeds off fear. So I'm
Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Oh, wait,
no, sir. I mean, yay that. But not that. I'm curious to see if they go that route, how much they give us with that.
Yeah.
That's the horror verse of Marvel that I love. Like that's really good stuff.
Yeah, and again, friend of the show John Runyon is probably got his his antenna up to try and figure out exactly who everybody is in this show beforehand. Yeah. So I have a feeling that he's probably going to be finding that information before we do. But some of the actors that they highlighted in there, and I didn't get all the names before we started talking about it, because I was just going to mention it briefly, but there's some really recognizable faces and some fun actor reveals in there, and just some other goofy things that I am so excited to see who these people are, for one, because I'm sure they're all Marvel figures. I'd be surprised if they made anybody up specifically for it after coming up with something like this. Oh, and looks like Michael Giacchino is directing.
Giacchino's directing, and he's mostly known as a composer. I know he's directed a short deck, what's the Star Trek, the short decks, what do they call it?
Short treks.
Short trek, yeah.
Yeah, which I loved.
Short
I know he's directed one of those, and and some of the some of his scores are pretty notable. On TV, Alias and Lost, and Fringe, and
Fringe,
Thor: Love and Thunder, The Batman. So there's a lot of superhero credits, but he's mostly known as a composer.
Okay. Well, this will be fun. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they do with it, and if there's going to be anything that comes out of it. That if there's going to be any connection, like Caleb, like you said, a Midnight Suns connection, which would mean that some of those characters you might see again.
Yep.
Or it could just be an in-universe movie. It could be like horror feature for the local TV channel somewhere in the Marvel universe. Maybe. I don't know. And there's a lot of Star Wars stuff, but we're not going to talk about that because
you stop it.
This is a comic book show.
Even one of my comics is Star Wars. Don't you be an asshole. Listen, before we started the show, one of our things is we try to keep the commentary that we have based on comic books. The core of Star Wars is not a comic book. We've talked about Star Wars plenty of times on this show. We've had episodes that dealt with Star Wars. Star Wars is in alignment with comic books, but at its heart, it's not a comic book. That's not the source material. That's all I'm saying.
But also, speaking of, good that you mentioned it, we really do need to have another Star Wars episode, because there's been a lot that's come out since the last one.
With our boys. Yeah,
we need to do like an all Star Wars, all episode kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, so maybe we'll save some of that for that. But yeah, I mean, and they also put out some other clips that haven't been released to the public of upcoming movies. like the upcoming Wakanda Forever. They saw apparently attendees got to see a lot more of Namor, which is pretty exciting. We got to see a little bit more of Ironheart, a little bit more of some of the other, I guess, Quantumania. They showed the same clip that they showed in San Diego Comic Con. So there's a lot of stuff that is pretty exciting, and of course they did revisit the timeline to show when everything is coming out. And how they've pretty much done that. So, we get bits and pieces all the time. We'll get some more stuff with Wakanda Forever when it's released in November. So, looking forward to all that. And then finally, this just kind of dropped today.
Wait.
Mostly,
I think you were missing one of the bigger pieces of news from the D23, and that was Thunderbolts.
Yes. Oh yeah, Thunderbolts. So they did release who the Thunderbolts cast was. I mentioned it very briefly. I didn't really talk about who it was, but it showed basically all they had was a poster. Who the characters are. So you got Hawkeye, you've got Yelena, Black Widow, you've got Red Guardian, which was kind of a surprise there as well.
I was surprised by a lot of it. I was surprised by Winter Soldier. I was surprised by U.S. Agent.
I was surprised by Winter Soldier, but not. I figured U.S. Agent was going to be in it. That makes sense.
U.S. Agent. I
know that that's true because of what happens at the end. That's true. I forgot.
But definitely Winter Soldier. A little bit of surprise there.
Yeah.
But it was interesting that you'd have two of the characters from the Black Widow verse of the Black Widow movie would be showing up as part of the Thunderbolts. Like Red Guardian was not expecting at all. Yelena, yes.
Yeah.
And U.S. Agent, yes. Of course, they had, oh gosh, what is her name? Julie Louis-Dreyfus
Valentina.
In the background.
Yeah.
Valentina, yes. Who's potentially Madam Hydra, is Madam Hydra, I mean,
fucking funny.
Was there anybody that we expected to see that wasn't?
I kind of thought they would bring back Mockingbird.
I thought that they may have, at least as an initial part, that some of the team may have been that original Zemo conceit of the villains disguised as heroes. So I wouldn't have been surprised if we had an Atlas, or I wouldn't be surprised if we had, or what's the Carla? What's her face? I forget the name. The bitch.
I know who you're talking. Was it she Madam Mask?
No.
Mayhem? No, not Mayhem. Gosh, yeah. Now
you know who I'm talking about, because I think cinematically, we'll figure it out. But I just thought cinematically that would have been an interesting character to have included. Moonstone.
Moonstone.
Sorry, yeah. Couldn't remember if it was Moonstone or Songbird.
Songbird was the one that was, she was like the innocent.
Yeah. She was the only real good one on the team, good person. So that was one thing you mentioned, Baron Zemo. So that was one thing that a lot of people pointed out. It was like Thunderbolts. I kind of associate that with Baron Zemo somehow, because he does in the comics quite a bit as part of it. And the potential, somebody had mentioned, well, maybe that's because he doesn't make it through the next Captain America movie. Captain America New World Order, which has been given a title. Maybe he doesn't make it. Maybe something happens to him in New World Order, and he's no longer around to be part of the
Maybe he just decided to stay in that club dancing.
Yeah, maybe he's just going to be dancing. He's going to become a choreographer. Go on, So You Think You Can Dance, or Dance with the Stars. Just, good stuff.
Yeah, Marvel's really good / bad about not recycling its villains. So, I can see that being like, no, this we gave you Baron Zemo. And if you're not going to go with that motif, if you're not going to go with the villains as heroes motif, which obviously they're not, you don't need them. I mean, and I love that original Thunderbolt stuff, right? Like, it's like I enjoy it. I've enjoyed a couple of iterations of Thunderbolts, but if you're not doing the villains motif, then you don't need Zemo. And you already have, they're putting people into those shapes. I mean, that's why we have Red Guardian, because he's essentially the Atlas figure, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, we're getting those. I don't know what you call them. We're getting those aspects.
The archetypes. You're getting the archetypes
not
there.
being the same characters. But
I'm also wondering. They're surprised to see 3 super soldiers on the team. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. David mentioned. Yeah, there are 3 separate
thing that
serum.
I thought may have been a recalibration with William Hurt's death, because one of the things that I liked about that particular Thunderbolts was that we literally knew who the Thunderbolt was in that lineup. I'm just wondering if that may have been part of their plan at some point.
It's possible. I mean, because General Ross, William Hurt's General Ross was in
and it could
several
give us another
movies.
Hope.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see what comes with that. And again, it's so early days anyway with it. I mean, the fact that they just had a poster with sort of a general idea who the characters of Thunderbolts are, that could change, or they could just be using it as a bait and switch. I mean, we all saw Suicide Squad, that came out, the James Gunn version, where you start the movie with a total bait and switch, like, here's your team. Never mind. But yeah, we'll see.
That's been done. We're not gonna. I don't think we're gonna.
Yeah. And then the last bit of information just came out today, again with solicits.
I don't know about, so this is all new to me.
Yeah. So they revealed through solicits, for the final issue number 7 of the Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths storyline that's been going on with right now with. Sorry, my cat has decided that she wants to join. Is the big event in DC right now. The way they're going to they're finally going to end it is essentially by revealing the dawn of the DCU, the new post-Dark Crisis universe. So it's following in the same footsteps as the original Crisis on Infinite Earths, and this is a direct connection to this. Is a direct sequel to Crisis on Infinite Earths. And what we're going to be getting out of it, they didn't reveal too much, but it's going to be a completely new status quo again. So you have the remaining heroes of Earth Zero, you have the return of the Justice League, it's... I would say that they're setting it up that the heroes win, but how they win and what they sacrifice is going to change the way that the DC universe is going to go forward. They did not make it sound like they're going to do a new 52 again, so that's a good thing, I think, for most fans. But it does sound like there's going to be a very different version of the multiverse that we'll be getting. So, could be very
If it's just a solidified history, I'm happy.
I mean, they could solidify history, and then they're going to have to change it again in 5 to 10 years. But
because as much as I enjoyed Rebirth and what went down there, it was undefined.
Yeah,
and
they've been trying to play with it for the past several years anyway.
We know what happened with Generation Next and that shit. So
yeah, and of course you've also got concurrently going on the Flashpoint series, and I've just forgotten.
And I imagine, at least in terms of storyline timeline, I imagine whatever is appearing in the New Justice Society series will take place after.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I'm really excited for that.
I love crossovers. Everybody goes with like, oh, I hate crossovers. It's so expensive. I fucking love crossovers. This a TV network can't do every show. Yeah. Crossing over into everything. A combo company can. Yeah. And even if it's just, oh look, there's red skies. That's okay.
I remember those crossovers. I never
understand these people like whining and bitching about like, oh, it's a crossover. I'm gonna have to stop and then restart again, and there'll be a flourishing gap in my run. So, fuck you.
I'm curious.
They're rarely good. I understand that. They're rarely great. We have had. I mean, I think, and even with Marvel, I think the problem with Marvel on crossovers is they always start off great.
Yeah.
The first two issues are great. I mean, think of like the first issue of Fear Itself, Siege. I mean, those are great books, and then they just kind of peter out. DC is the opposite. They kind of get better at the end, historically. But I love crossovers. I never understood that I mean, that's one of the most comic booky things about comic books, and I don't know.
So Bill, let me ask you a question though. Do you differentiate between a crossover and an event? Because I do to a point. So I
do
crossover.
to a point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like crossover. I don't always like.
I don't get hung up on the names of it. I do see events that are more tied to a franchise than line wide. So.
Yeah. But then again, you might end up with a tied to a particular franchise kind of crossover like AXE right now, which
it's not good.
Not a fan of.
Okay.
I'm not enjoying it.
It didn't look good.
It's fine. It's so grimdark, but that's
all right.
Meh. So anyway, but it does look interesting. So we'll see what things look like in January, and that's actually a pretty great time for them to refresh everything for the new year. So like starting 2023 with a whole new type of whole new status quo.
Oh.
Probably a bunch of new books
will
too.
Be the same again.
Nothing will be the same again.
Nothing.
Are they going to draw the line?
They might draw the line. We'll draw the line at $4.99 now. Oh,
we will draw the line now. Now.
But that's all I have. That's all I have.
That'd be the best thing for a line-wide reboot. The new now.
The new now. The new now next. Marvel now. Marvel.
Yeah.
Marvel now. Marvel right now. Marvel a little bit later than now. Yeah, I remember that initiative in the 2010s. Well, hey, did you want to do Geek Gets?
Sure.
I actually have stuff.
That's nice. Why don't you start since you usually don't have stuff?
Well, I have two things here that I know. One that Caleb has and one that Bill has. So let's start with the one that Bill has that I wanted to show.
Might it be
the mighty Thor? Look at the mighty Thor. Look at her. She is so mighty. This was pretty cool because for those of you who know, we've done Disney Insiders, Bill and I, for a long time, and it's just a points program, basically. You get a lot of points for seeing movies, buying stuff, whatever. But on Wednesdays, or doing nothing, they'll just give you points. But their Funko Pops, 400 points, which is not much. 400 points will get you an amazing Funko Pop special that they'd have. Every so often they have these Wednesday wins or whatever, and they're usually, they're posters, keychains, things like that. But when they have the Funko Pops, they're usually exclusive. They're, special editions or anything kind of interesting.
Yeah. And might be like a small paint variant or something.
Yeah. Something different. And I know the one that I also, Bill, I missed it, unfortunately, but they had a Moon Knight this week, where he's actually posed with his white suit with gold on it, which was pretty cool. Pretty. Yes, it was very pretty. But yeah, really great. Free shipping too. So if you're not already signed up, sign up for Disney Insiders and just get free points and stuff. The next thing, this is
of Disney Plus. You are now getting 50 points a month.
There you go. Yeah, that's another great thing.
You just get that automatically.
Yeah, which I love. I love being lazy for getting free stuff. This other one I know that Caleb has, because Caleb was the one who just basically encouraged me to get it. And that is Passion Volume 2, Passion of Gengoro Tagame, Volume 2, which just came out. When I was at the store, unfortunately, the owner had just sold out of Volume 1, which I still need. I never got Volume 1, so now I have Volume 2 in search of a Volume 1. Yeah, I know you guys have it already, but I missed it when they first released or re-released Volume 1. But I'm gonna get it now that I've got Volume 2, and then I can read them.
We can also say, as part of a community that Caleb and I are part of, we're getting some very confused comments from the straight boys on this.
Oh, well, yeah, 100. I don't know if they're confused or just clueless.
Uh-oh.
Either.
We'll get you back.
Did I break up a little bit?
Yeah, you're coming back though. Sound like you're coming back.
Yeah. Okay. There we go.
All right.
Sorry about that. This looks dirty.
Yeah.
Dirty.
Well, I mean, when we were all swooning about Massive when they re-released and reprinted Massive, so it was funny too. The store owner where I picked this one up was like, "Oh yeah, people really love those. Like when Junji Ito comes out with a new one, and Takami and all of that." And I'm like, "This is probably a different fan base that's getting these, but yeah, we're all pretty happy when he comes out with more." Or when they come out with another collection. And then the third one I know that neither of you have, but I was at my local independent bookstore, and they actually do have a pretty impressive graphic novel section. And I usually find something that I really love. There's some great stuff that I found there, like the Murder Book that Bill and I talked about several months ago, and a couple other great books. But they had this tome called Third Person by Emma Grove. That is it's a trans woman's memoir, all 900 pages of it. It is a doorstop. It is huge, but I've read some of it and it's fascinating. It's done in a very cartoony style, which, given the subject matter, is a very interesting kind of dynamic because it is very serious in parts. I mean, this is very personal work. But definitely it's really cool. But picked up this giant thing too, and I'll be working my way through that over the next couple of months, thanks to all the piles of other comics that I have to read. But definitely something to be excited that I picked up. What you guys get?
Let's go over to Caleb.
Well, I'll try to do this without my internet being stupid. I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was going to be that kind of night. So first and foremost that I got to give a shout out to our friend, Bill and I's friend, Stephen Wooder, who got me this really good...
very nice.
I'm a really good lawyer.
Very nice.
Stephen is traveling this week, seeing some friends and going to some concerts, so I want him to be safe. And, I don't know if he watches this or not, but I, just think the world on him. Think the world of him. So I appreciate him, and this shirt's amazing, so thank you. Second on my list, I like music. Did you guys know I like music? I like heavy metal music from time to time. In particular, I'm a big fan of this little fella you may have heard of called Rob Halford, and this band that he screamed into existence called Judas Priest. And it just so happens that I have good friends in good places who treat me very well. And Mr. Bill Zanowitz sent me 2 vinyls that I did not have of easily my top 3 bands that I am giddy about. And I haven't listened to them because I've been waiting for this moment, and also because my husband decorated for fall and there are foliage and pumpkins on top of my record player. But I have got Point of Entry and Turbo 30. Both, I mean, just this one, I can't. So I'm very excited about this. I appreciate it in a big way. I love you, and I really hope it's not like next July before I see you again, but can't wait to hug you again. Thank you so much.
That's so cool.
Like you said, you had an embargo on giving you stuff for graduating law school, and
which people
yeah, forget that. You passed it before, you said nothing, so there you go.
Yeah,
the cool thing about the Point of Entry, that was originally the British cover.
Oh, okay.
In the States, there's a very different cover. The big song on that album was "Heading Out to the Highway."
Yep.
And let me see if I can get it here without.
That's interesting. I didn't recognize this cover. I thought it was maybe a reprint or something. I didn't realize this was the original British version.
I can get to it easily. Jesus. Oh, Batwing fell. So this was the cover in the States.
Oh, okay.
If you can see that there. So that was the original cover in the UK and most of the rest of the world. And when they did the reissue, because that was the band's preferred cover, that's what they used. So
that's pretty neat.
Mm-hmm. It's a really good cover, and a really good album.
Yep.
Really good album. I'm excited. Yeah, no, I'm singing in my head. So, and that's really all I have. Like that's all I've got from Geek Gets. I've got some other books and stuff like that. But these are my two big things. My really awesome shirt from our friend Steven, and then my friend Bill, who always keeps my ears happy. So thanks, guys.
All right, I'll be quick about my stuff. I'm a Mego guy. I've been getting a lot of Mego. Shut up with the Mego, Bill. One company that did keep the Remigo flag flying for a long time was Figures Toy Company. And it's very rare that Figures Toy Company discounts their figures. They usually run $30 with tax. And that's, kind of out, that's a little bit outside if I'm going to buy multiples, But they did drop their prices on the boxed versions. Here's a Starfire, and most of them are, come in this package. And what's really cool is you can snip this and open and close the package. So
nice.
That's really nice that they have that. But when Migos originally came out in 1972 test market, 73 mass market, I know my stuff. They came out in boxes, in small boxes. And what FTC did is they did replication of those. And actually, Mego Corp is releasing figures in that format later on this year, which is I'm excited about. But they did drop the prices by a third of their boxed figures. So I did get 4 of them. I got Barbara Gordon, the TV version of Barbara Gordon. I got Clark Kent. So, and there's a long, strange history with Mego Alter Ego figures. Got Superboy with his head turned, but that's Superboy. And I also got Plastic Man. And,
cool.
Yeah, so I've got my eyes on a couple of others, and I just love that they have that packaging. As Caleb knows, and as the world knows, I'm also a big music fan. I've been to a lot of shows since we last talked.
Mm-hmm. You've been busy.
I saw Soft Cell's show in New York. On Monday, I saw Roxy Music's farewell tour, the Roxy Music 50. In between the two of them, I scratched my metal itch and went to see Ghost and Mastodon, very close to home here. And Ghost have more merch than any band I have ever seen.
Yeah.
There's like so much that you can get at the shows. So, one thing is that it used to be you would get the t-shirt and that would be your souvenir for the show. But, I'm old. And what I can do, like walk into school, like look at me, look at the show I went to last weekend. But because vinyl isn't the easiest thing, I decided to get the most recent Ghost album on vinyl. And Caleb, I believe you have this too, right?
Yes. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So my favorite track.
That's a great cover.
Is Spillways. That's my favorite track on it.
So yeah, with this album, so one of the things that Ghost does that I really appreciate and enjoy is they are going through the genres and generations of music. Like if you go back and listen to their old stuff, it's very Black Sabbath, right? Like they're using they're using antiquated instruments. They're using old tube amps. And like they go through the 50s and 60s and 70s, and now they're into like the 80s and a little bit of new wave, like early 90s kind of stuff like that. And on some level, like I see a lot of people that don't like them because they're like, "Oh, they're just a gimmick band." I'm like, "Yeah, that's the point.
That's the point.
That's the entire point." They start. They sound like this now. I was like, "Yeah, they started singing about Satan because Black Sabbath, and now they're getting into weird, nuanced poppy shit because that's where music went. That's the arc of the thing." I think they're a fantastic band. Tobias is just. His brain amazes me. His sound amazes me. Like they don't do anything that I don't like. I can't find something to appreciate.
They were a little bit tamer than I thought they would be. I was surprised at that. I thought there would be a little more edge to them, but it was still,
I think
like Alice Cooper, just highly entertaining.
Right. I think their Marilyn Manson, Korn, Rammstein era. I think they're going to do something like that. So
I hope not.
And I know the connotations with Manson, but like that era of music, that shock rock.
I hope they select different acts to emulate during whatever period we're having coming from. But and just one thing, I just couldn't.
I'd be happy with Ghost Does Rammstein.
I got a Ghost Koozie.
Ooh.
Because koozies are cool, and they're the ruin of many young men at college credit ratings. And I just have a soft spot for koozies. The only other thing I want to point out, I mean, I got a lot of stuff. I bought so many fucking toys. I had it. One of the reasons why we're not doing Baltimore.
Oh, the real reason, I see.
One of my favorite guests and one of my favorite people in the comics industry, period, is Ed Cato of Captain Action Enterprises. And if you're familiar with Captain Action, he was the original comic book based superhero from my deal. It was a little bit of a twist. You didn't get Superman or Batman figures, you got Superman or Batman costumes in the 1960s, and these are all worth a fortune. When I was a little kid, one of the earliest comic shops I went to had a Captain America from 1966 still on sale in the store in 1979. So I got it, and I should have never opened it. But at a recent show locally, I got the Captain Action Enterprises version of Captain America. So maybe at some point I'll open this, and you have the two different shields from the different periods. You can be masked. You can be Steve Rogers there, and also there are portions of other costumes. It's kind of like a Build-A-Figure. So there's parts of Hawkeye, the Hawkeye costume, and if you got the others that were in this wave, which was Spider-Man, Thor, and Loki, you can get the other parts and get 5 costumes instead of 4. But that's Captain Action. That's the in the past when I bought Captain Action stuff from the second reboot after playing Mantis. Sorry. It was always just the Captain Action specific stuff. I didn't get any of the Marvel connected costumes. So this is my first one. So happy. There's kind of like a continuance from what happened to me in '79 to now, and just treating this better. I did that one. Yeah.
I always forgot that the triathlon symbol that they did for that character at Marvel was a throwback Captain Action. But like if you hold that up, the red, yellow, and I think it's red, yellow, and green in the corner. That was the symbol that they used for triathlon when they brought that character in there. And so I always forgot that was a nod for continuity.
Interesting.
Yep. So that's some of my gets. So
cool.
I'm surrounded by toys right now. Surrounded all over the place.
So many toys.
He says like a complaint.
Yeah, but never enough. Never enough.
So I want to hear about some books that you guys read this week.
Comics.
I missed you guys last week, even though I was celebrating and stuff. But I miss talking comics with you guys. So I would love to hear about some stuff you guys read.
Okay, Steve, why don't you start it off?
Well, I guess I could. So I'm going to start with with probably the kiddie book. I say kiddie book. It's more YA, maybe like middle grades. And Bill and I are fans of a lot of the stuff that DC's been putting out under the it used to be DC Kids line, DC
Zoom.
Inc., DC Zoom, all that stuff. But I've just been really impressed with a lot, not all. You still remember Lois Lane and her stupid
How
friendship
could we ever forget Lois Lane?
But a lot of their other stuff, especially that's been, unique characters combined with, established DC characters or versions of DC characters, I've just really enjoyed them. And the latest one that came out is My Buddy, Killer Croc, by Sarah Farizan with Nicoletta Baldari on art. And Nicoletta Baldari has a very Sullivan Bluth animated style. It's so dynamic. It looks like they're just panels taken straight out of right out of the film. If there was a film version of this, it's definitely happened. This is exactly what it looks like. Kind of like those movie adaptations for kids that they had back in the 80s and 90s for a lot of animated TV shows or animated films. But it's just a great feel-good book. You have a kid named Andy who's living with his aunt in Gotham City. His aunt's a gossipy columnist who has to cover basically everything that Bruce Wayne does because, well, Bruce Wayne's always with another woman all the time. He's just a party boy. And she, never gets to cover anything serious that she likes. And meanwhile, the news is just dominated by either Batman or gossipy crap about Bruce Wayne. She's like, ugh, these two should get together. But it's really fun. And poor Andy just is not getting along well at school. He's having a hard time making friends. He's a brilliant artist, which one of the girls actually recognizes and wants to work with him to make their own comic books. But he's also targeted by some local bullies, mostly because one of the bullies has a crush on the girl that's been spending all the time with Andy, but also because he's weird, he's shy, he's new, he's switched around schools all the time because his dad was kind of a confidence man, and so now he's kind of living with his aunt because he doesn't really have anywhere else to go. The other thing about Andy is that he's a huge wrestling fan. And years ago, when he was with his dad going to see a local territory show in, I think, Tennessee is where they kind of mention where it's from, he gets to see his new favorite wrestler, Killer Croc, or Wayland as he knows him. And he just absolutely falls in love with Killer Croc. He just knows all of his moves. He thinks he's the coolest guy ever. And fast forward to now, Killer Croc has escaped from a heist that Batman foiled, and is hiding out in the sewers, and Andy runs into him. And, he's so devoted to Killer Croc that he feels that they're both misfits, they're both misunderstood. Andy has a bit of a scar on his face, so he looks different, just like Killer Croc looks different. And he feels like they've got a kinship there. Unfortunately, Killer Croc, not a good guy. He just didn't have anybody who really cared or loved him, unlike Andy, and so he kind of takes advantage of the fact that Andy is just, so hopelessly enamored with his hero, to unfortunate consequences. But it's a really great book. It's a lot of fun to read. It put a huge smile on my face while I was reading it because there's a lot of really great little moments in there, and it has a really, I'd say, uplifting and hopeful ending. That's just a lot of fun. So I really recommend this. My Buddy Killer Croc. It's just been put out by DC Kids, and it's available at stores anywhere. So check it out.
Nice. Cool. Caleb, I'm just wondering, do you have anything that's all ages? Because I have an all ages book too.
Not in front of me.
Not okay.
No,
right.
I'm sorry.
Do you want me to go next since I also have an all ages book? And then
I'm a huge fan of conceptual continuity, so roll with it.
Okay. One bit that was recently in the news was the Star Wars all ages license leaving IDW and going back. In, they had all the license. To Dark Horse Comics. And we recently had the first issue that was published of Dark Horse All Ages Initiative for Star Wars, which was Star Wars Hyperspace Stories #1. And it appears that these are going to be all done in one stories. I don't think that's going to be the case of all of the all ages content that Dark Horse is going to be producing for Lucasfilm, but Hyperspace Stories is in that format. And as you can see from here, you see that we have our friends from the prequels. We have Obi-Wan, we have Padme, and we have Anakin, and the battle droids. We also have this young Wookiee here, young female Wookiee. And the story basically revolves around her. Her father is a diplomat of sorts, and there have been separatists that have been kidnapping. And the people that trying to think not Empire, what was in place then? The Republic sends Jedi investigation to see what's going on in this area, though it's not Kashyyyk, but there's a substantial Wookiee population on this one planet. it's a little strange because it goes dark. It's a very dark ending for an all ages book, but I did also think that, given the consequences of the action in here, that you wouldn't be surprised by a somewhat adult ending. It takes place in the early part of the Clone Wars. We see General Grievous. We see a bunch of other small little cameos like Yoda and Mace Windu. And that's basically all you need to know. They're investigating why Separatists are kidnapping Wookiees. We find out why, and it doesn't end well for somebody. So, but as an all ages book, for a 22 page done in one story, it hits all the beats that an early Clone Wars story needs to hit. It's very much in the spirit of the Clone Wars animated series, not so much in art as you can see here. It's a little more anime influenced, but in terms of tone and scope of the animated series, is definitely shaking hands with what Filoni had put out with that series. So I don't think I'm going to be a regular reader, but when it does get collected, I may be thinking about getting some stuff, because this at least this first issue was well done. Star Wars Hyperspace Stories.
Well, and the fact that it's back at Dark Horse, I think that's kind of cool to see Dark Horse with the license again.
Mm-hmm. They were a good landlord.
Yeah, I mean they definitely were. They were a good, good caretaker of the brand for a while. How would you feel like, compared to the stuff that IDW was just putting out recently, like the Star Wars tales and the Tales from the High Republic? All ages books. Like,
I haven't read any of the High Republic. I have read,
okay.
the Tower Vader and some of the other stuff that came out. This seemed to be a bit more on the adult side.
Oh, interesting. So it's kind of like a bridge, kind of between like the Marvel stuff and this.
I think so. I mean, I'm only judging it by one book right now, but it did feel, especially with some of the droid stories, if you read those from the IDW, they really felt dumbed down, and this is it's a couple of notches above that. I think I felt this was much more comfortable and challenging a young reader than the IDW material was. And I don't want to slam the IDW material, because there's some fantastic art in the mix there. There's some absolutely fantastic art in the mix. But I think as a young reader, this would have made me feel a bit more respected.
Okay, no, that's good, because I did kind of feel that way a little bit with the High Republic series that they had, even though it did tie in sometimes very directly to the Marvel to the Marvel Star Wars High Republic titles. With some of the even literally panels, like a panel you would see in the IDW book would mirror a panel that's happening in one of the Marvel titles. But yeah, it was definitely a lot more younger readers.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool.
That's pretty cool. Somebody slams me, it was Vader's Castle. It was not
Vader's Castle. That's what it was. Yeah, because Vader's Tower sounded right, but I'm like, something.
Mustafar.
I'm sure there's a tower in that castle.
The whole thing is a tower. It's less of a castle and more of a tower. Goes straight up.
All right, let's hear about some Caleb has in his hand.
Well, I'm calling an audible. So just for, like you said, the conceptual continuity of talking about all ages book. I've got a book here. It's not technically all ages, although I think it should be, and it's something I know Steve has read as well. And so if you saw me back over here and just pull it out of my stack, that's what I wasn't going to talk about this book, but it's worth talking about, and that is Twig. It's a series from Image Comics that I don't remember if we have talked about this book before.
The first issue.
I thought so. It's written by Scotty Young, drawn by a very different Kyle Stram than I have ever seen before, and then colored by Jean-Francois Bellieu, who does all of that I know of Scotty's books. Did Scotty's own drawn books. I think they worked together on Oz, but he's done all of his stuff through there, and then lettered by Nate Picos. If you are a fan of books like Bone, I think that you will absolutely love this series. Bone is incredible. It's a really fun story, and it very much ties into the theme of this. So if you're a fan of Bone, I really highly suggest you pick up Twig. Essentially, the long story short, Twig is a little small fuzzy cute creature who is shoved into a life that he is maybe not ready for. Basically, he's got to follow in his father's footsteps, and his father was I think they called him a placeling, and his whole job was to take these crystals, these artifacts that they would find, and journey through this mystical world and get them revealed, and then go take whatever object that is and put it in the right spot. And if they didn't do that, the world would come to an end. But something has happened to his father. He doesn't know what it is, and throughout this entire series, it's all very much it's his first day of work, and first issue he's late, and then he shows up at the last minute in the first issue, and something terrible has happened to the person who's supposed to teach him how to do his job, and so he's stuck with this artifact, and he has to make his own way. And he's constantly fumbling over himself. He's constantly doing the wrong thing. He's getting in his own way, and he thinks he's ruining everything. So it's very much this spirit of kind of that first day of school for a child when they don't know what they should know, or not even that. First day of law school for a law student, when you realize that you don't know what you don't know, and you're supposed to, and you're expected to already know those things. But he's got this little buddy, this little arthropod. I don't know what to call him. His name is Splat. He's this little weird slug creature that is his road companion. And they go on these adventures and do a really good job showing you this amazing world and the landscape that's built into it. And as he takes these 2 steps forward and inevitably 1 step back through each issue, through the 5th issue, that get him to the place that he is now. And the 5th issue is the last issue, but they reach a spot where they are stuck between a rock and a hard place. And the artifact that they think is the key to everything. It's the thing that they need to save the world. It's kind of been destroyed. It's called the Heartstone, and they don't know how to get it back. Like he thinks that everything is just he's failed. He's failed for not, and he's got to finish this journey knowing that he's a failure. But he reaches a point to where he starts to realize, and he has this memory of his father, and there's this beautiful moment to where he's remembering sitting on his dad's knee, and his dad is talking to him. And this book is like a lot of these all ages children's book. Like there's some type of moralism in it. And there's this beautiful scene where his dad says, having heart is like having an unseen thing deep inside you that gives you the strength and the courage to keep others alive if need be. And in that single sentence, Scotty Young is able to sum up the entire spirit of what an all ages adventure story should be. It truly is to look inside yourself. I mean, as adults, we think about these things and we're like, oh, well, yeah, that's the spirit of these stories. That's the low hanging fruit. But it's amazing how many adults don't understand this. It's amazing how many adults aren't able to read an all ages story, to read an adventure story, old stories like DuckTales, old stories like Disney stories. And they really aren't able to pull out these thematic, very simplistic, true to life spirit things and apply them to their self and their own self-esteem and their own self-worth. And I think more adults should read these stories that we're all talking about, especially these adventure stories. It is spectacular. I won't say how it ends. There's a very, very cool twist at the end that kind of opens up this world. Weirdly enough, fans of video games, I think, will really appreciate where this book goes. But I thought it was both adorable, wonderful, heartfelt, and strangely heavy for an all ages story, because it is an all ages story, but it's strangely, yeah. I mean, just like Bill was talking about, it's strangely heavy. Not in the same way as Bill's story, but just the emotional weight and the emotional labor that this character goes through to get past all the monsters and the demons, and then you just get into the design of these creatures. Kyle Stram, who I know from horror, like I know him from works that he did with Justin Jordan, the works that he did with I want to say what was that book that he did with Spread? Not Spread. He did Spread with Justin Jordan. He's done a ton of stuff, but he's very grotesque look to him, and he's Cham Henson. Like he's channeling these weird and wonderful, beautiful, gorgeous, like deep animated themes. There's a little bit of Miyazaki in there, but not it's not super anime, but it's there. You know what I mean? So, and if you listen to him and Scotty, this was very much it was a story that was supposed to go into a different direction. Then the pandemic hit, and they said, you know what, we're not telling the story that we want to tell. So it's very much a pandemic comic. It's very much a pandemic book, and it turned out to be something incredible. Like I love a lot of Scotty's work, but this, especially in the short form that it is, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. And it's something that like, I want my nephew to read. I want my nieces to read. I want my husband to read. I want like, just go for it. So I highly recommend Twig. If you hadn't picked it up, all 5 issues, beautiful, beautiful story. And fit for literally all ages.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool.
I have to.
That is something I would think about picking up in trade, and especially with Image's price points.
Yeah, you should.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that would.
And I have to. I think it was like the page, after the page that you showed us. This to me is just so gorgeous. But you see some of Stram's work in there, because Stram is known for doing these very like twisted, organic, globular kind of shapes. But here they're less, threatening and terrifying, and more fascinating and, strangely beautiful. And it's so weird seeing some of the other stuff that he's done, like Unearth, and I think he was doing
that's what I was thinking about. That's the book I was thinking about. Yeah.
Unearth and Spread, and just, where it's very gruesome and gory and, body horror just stuff. And he takes some of those same techniques, and with the colors, the colors from both of you, just gorgeous. Yeah. Gorgeous. And it in this context, with the all ages sort of format, it looks really cool. Like, it's very weird and out there. I like how you said it's very kind of like Henson. It's very Dark Crystal.
Yeah, it is.
Where, like, everything's organic, but in a way that's less threatening and more just marvelous and wondrous and stuff. So, but yeah, cool. I loved it too.
Okay, we're up against the clock. I think we can still get 2 titles in each, but I think we got to be quick.
Yeah.
So let's be quick, and let's start with Steve there.
So this is my other pick. You can see my beautiful Maria Lovett cover, because I love anything by Maria Lovett. She did not draw this book, but she did the cover. This is Tvr Cult, or Tvr Cult, True Cult, which, I don't understand the reasons for the V's necessarily. I think it's Swedish. I don't know. It's True Cult. The V makes sense once you finish reading the first issue. I think a little bit. It's interesting, but basically it centers around this poor schlub Marty, who has been working the same job at Burger Lord for like 9-10 years now, maybe even more. Flipping burgers, just working shifts. Not even a manager. Has just been basically doing the same thing, plugging it away since high school. And he's been, since a customer left a gun behind in a booth, he has been imagining himself finding a way to get away from the Burger Lord sort of lifestyle. And he hatches his plan to go and hold up all of the stores in the shopping center where the Burger Lord's located. And he does it on his lunch break and just hits every store. It's funny, you've got the mattress shop, you've got the music store, you've got the pet store, you've got the jewelry shop. You have a comic store, which a great comment from him is like, I didn't even know they had comics anymore. I didn't know these stores existed yet. It's kind of like a, perfect heist, but in very small stakes. And his last theft is just a package. He steals a package that's supposed to be delivered to somebody somewhere in the shopping center. And when he opens it up, it's just a record, just an LP. And he's like, "Yeah, this is lame. It's not even Lita Ford. It's pretty lame. Whatever." he comes back, and he's also, they're interviewing a new prospect, a new employee who is the perfect Burger Lord employee, spouts it off like it's corporate gospel, everything. The police show up because obviously, the store's called the cops, and Marty is sweating. So right now, this is very conventional. There's some humorous moments. Marty's comments. His manager Bernice is hilarious. She's great. Some pretty conventional stuff here until the very end, and that's when we're treated to the fact that this is not just any old, like lame small stakes, petty criminal kind of book. This is one that's going to go into the supernatural and the I'd say the satanic cult direction. But it's a good setup. It's a good sort of bait and switch setup. If you didn't know kind of what the book was about before you picked it up, you'd be reading through thinking this is just a comedy. This is just a comedy of errors, small crime, and that. I recommend it. It's drawn by Leanna Congas and co-created and written by Scott Bryan Wilson with some other great contributors in this, put out by IDW. I recommend it. I'm going to continue with it and read it. It's just going to be a mini-series. But, yeah. True Cult or True Cult. Give it a shot.
All right. Over to Caleb. What's another book you have there?
So this might be kind of a strange question, but any chance you guys like big hairy dudes that run around naked?
I've been known to admire that. Yes.
Disgusting.
Well,
disgusting.
If you do, I'm fond of them. If you do, you might enjoy this sequel to a series called Shirtless Bear Fighter 2. I think this book is incredibly fun. I was a big fan of the first 6-issue series. I think it was 6 issues, 6 or 5. Really, really fun. At the end of that series, the main character shirtless, if you remember right, he'd found out that his brother Bear, was actually the guy who like sold him out, got his wife killed, but it was her brother that is the head of a toilet paper factory conglomerate that did all, like, was in cahoots with it, did all the bad thing. At the end of that series, he kind of joined forces with his new friend, Susie Silva. And Susie Silva is an agent of a kind of an FBI organization called The Fuzz. And so that's where you ended at that series. This series opens up. Shirtless is acting as an agent for The Fuzz. He's going on missions for them. Specifically, they are hunting down this really, really terrible bad bear creature guy named Dr. Crumlin. And Dr. Crumlin's little bitty. He's teeny tiny. He's got shrinky rays. And so he has managed to shrink himself down to the size of smaller than gummy bears. And he has infiltrated, weirdly, a young boy. And so he's living inside this young boy's brain, and he's making him like build these giant gummy bears that he's then sending out into the society to knock down buildings and cause catastrophes and chaos. But our man Shirtless has gotten a hold of this little bitty teeny tiny Chucky Ray, and he has made himself microscopic, and he's gone. And I want to say this, I don't encourage large hairy men to go inside little boys in any way, but essentially what he does, he is able to get in there, and he goes after Dr. Kremlin, pulls him out, saves the day. But he's running out of time. This thing's on a timer, right? Like, he's going to get big again, and it's going to be bad if he blows up inside this kid, because then the kid will just be no more. And so he and Silva kind of get into arguments, and he goes on his merry way. He's like, I can't work like this. Take my pants and my badge. I'll just go be naked, hairy, shirtless bear fighter, complete with pixelated genitals. Because that's what he does. But look, there are bad guys in the wings ready to do bad things, and they take advantage of the fact that that Shirtless is not in the midst of Fuzz. In fact, these bears are calling forth a great dark lord. And there's this really good scene where, lo and behold, Lawyer Bear calls forth the Dark Lord. So, of course, lawyers are the bad guys, right? This is all happening in the background. Meanwhile, Shirtless is trying to make it, but Shirtless is a little bit of an addict, right? If he doesn't punch a bear every 24 hours, he just gets that itch. So he finds himself on a beach, and these bears are doing the whole kick sand thing. But they're doing it against some people that don't really deserve it. Gets himself into some trouble. Yeah, he's a hothead. But look, Jody LaHoo does a fantastic job telling the story. I love Neil Vendrell's art. You got Mike Spicer on the colors. You got Dave Lanphier and Troy Pateri on the letters. It's ridiculous, right? Like, this is ridiculous comics. I talked a few weeks ago, last time we were on here, about a comic that I just wanted to roll up, throw in my back pocket, and read because it was stupid, dumb fun. That's what this is, and it's just cool. It's fun, and look, I mean, he's a big hulking like man child. Like, he was a baby with a beard, and now he's just giant, muscular with a beard, walking around naked, living his best life, punching bears that deserve it, and fighting gummy things, and just, you know, getting into shenanigans. So it's super cool. Check out the original series. Check this series out. It's from Image Comics. You know, makes sense. But Shirtless Bear Fighter 2. Highly.
Can you also show the back cover with that awesome piece of merch that you can?
Oh, I can.
Oh,
yeah. You can join the fuzz. Now you can be an official bear fighter with your very own fuzz badge. You can get it today exclusively at www.skeletoncrewstudio.com. SKELTONCREWSTUDIO.com. And you get your own badge. So you can be part of the fuzz.
I believe that Layup and Vendrell are represented by Tom Cromwell. Steve?
I think so. Yeah. Did they talk about that? Or didn't we talk about that with him?
We talked about that.
Years ago?
So there's no reason why we shouldn't have had these guys in the show at this point. So we should work on that.
They're hilarious. They're hilarious. I've met them at Heroes.
A load of laughs, and I'm going to transition to an Image book that was not a load of laughs, but that's okay.
Well, before we do, we've got another bear that's come and said hello. Tony Cookson, hello. Hey Steve, hello Caleb, and hiya Bill. Hi Tony.
Okay. The book that I've chosen for my next book is The Last Shadowhawk. First issue in a while. And this is promoted inside as potentially the last Shadowhawk story. Shadowhawk was, the lowest selling of the original Image series, but in saying it was the lowest selling meant that its average issue sold at like 650,000 copies. So perspective. It was written and drawn originally by Jim Valentino. Valentino, for a long time, was the main creative force at, in terms of approvals, in his role as publisher at Image. So it's because of him that we have things like The Walking Dead and Saga and Invincible. So a very important figure. And if you want we've joked on this show before about comics that made us cry twice, and his series, A Touch of Silver, if you can seek that out, which is effectively an autobiographical story. It's not easy to read, but it's a rewarding experience nonetheless. Anyway, back to Shadowhawk. The original Shadowhawk was Paul Johnstone, who was an African-American lawyer by day and vigilante by night. Twist in the Shadowhawk story is in the early, I believe it was like the second or third issue, we find out that Paul is HIV positive. And you know what that meant in 92. So he was somebody who was against time. And in his role as vigilante, he would not kill his opponents, but he would always break their backs. That was Shadowhawk's thing. The character Paul Johnstone eventually died of AIDS. We had different individuals take the mantle of Shadowhawk, and then Paul Johnstone was eventually renewed. It was reincarnated, and his storyline continued. What we have here is effectively the last story for him. It's written and drawn by Philip Tan. It's deliciously early Image in that you can read it. It's effectively like all splash pages, and you can read it in 5 minutes. Basically, the gods that gave Shadowhawk his power have decided it's time for him to go on to his next incarnation and to leave his mortal body. He comes up against, however, an adversary named Raish, which is German for revenge. Again, that old Image subtlety. And Raish explains to him, hey, you didn't kill these people, but you provided a slow death for them. Once your back is broken, you never come back from that effectively and if you think that you were somewhat on the side of the angels because you didn't take that next step, what you did was put them into a living death. In some ways that's worse. And as Paul goes through this and his exploration, as they of course are fighting, he comes to that conclusion that that and again, not subtle, ending with a Dylan Thomas poem, that he comes to accept that he could have taken a different route. One thing I absolutely love about this, and I wish more publishers did this, since it's Image and since it's in effect a anniversary story, that's fodder for variant covers. They include every variant cover after the main storyline, and and of course a lot of these are based on classic Image covers. I wish other publishers would do that, man. I really do. This cover is actually by Valentino and Philip Tan after Liefeld, the pose that we saw in the first issue of Youngblood. And if you loved early Image, I mean, this is going to scratch it itch so beautifully. It really is. I enjoyed it for what it was, and for what it is something very specific, but it's not easy to pull this stuff off in, with 21 years of hindsight. And I think this did this pretty well. So the Last Shadowhawk Image.
I think Philip Tan, he really made that happen. Like he set that off. His art is just gorgeous.
Oh,
to be a book full of spreads like that, like you'd be hard pressed to find a better artist to do that with.
Okay, let me just show you here with Philip Tan of Shadowhawk, not having a good moment. Look at that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous.
David Finch, I've always thought was an artist that does ugly good.
Yeah.
Tan, I think, is somebody that does ugly situations good.
Yeah.
It makes it look, it's almost like, Dario Argento, Murder Never Looked as Beautiful as when he films it. It's very much along those lines. And there's like, it's like this fights and there's, I mean, look at this. This is so Image. Look how Image this is. Telling his backstory. It's just perfect for what it sets out to be. And the Last Shadowhawk, that's the book.
It's so interesting too because I haven't pulled out my old Image books because I got all the ones that when they came out. I have my Youngbloods and Spawn and Shadowhawk and everything. But yeah, I mean, all it was just splash page, splash page. It's like nothing.
And I also just want to go back and, I know there was some criticism in regards to Shadowhawk when they did have the element of HIV as part of his storyline, and, that he was, by appearances, a straight character, and that his infection of HIV came from tainted blood and not from sexual activity. I can understand people, viewing that as a bit of a cop-out, but even saying HIV in a comic,
I was gonna say at least he's talking about it.
But that was at least it put it on the front burner in terms of topics, and I'm almost certain Valentino would be a bit more brave now.
But that was the thing at that time period, because they were really trying to push that it wasn't a gay disease. Because up till, throughout the 80s, it was always thought of, it's just a gay disease. Funny enough, around the same time, Golden Girls talked about HIV in terms of Rose having, I guess, a minor surgery or something where she came in contact with potentially infected blood. And it was a big thing. It's like, it's not what you do. It has nothing to do with, your lifestyle. It could affect anybody. And I think at the time, in the early 90s with Shadowhawk, this was something that was kind of bold to have a character who had HIV, who was living with and then dying of, HIV and AIDS, and not have it be a gay illusion, or this character is gay and then they're gonna die. Like, unfortunately, similar to what happened in North Star's coming out in Alpha Flight, where he came out in relation to another character, the villain of the story's son, who was dying of AIDS because he was gay. Or he contracted it because he had unprotected sex, and that was it was interesting because it's all happening around that same time period. But here's a whole character is defined by who has this as a defining feature. But he's also.
I also don't think you can dismiss the example of Magic Johnson either.
Oh yeah, I mean, was that 92, 91, 92? So about the same time.
Yeah, it's all around the same time. It's all around the same time.
So where it brought it home to everybody that this is not just a gay disease that only affects gay men. Like, this is something that.
But also just like a wonderfully meta book too.
Right.
Oh,
so real quick, because I know we're trying to wrap this up. Do you guys have a favorite early image artist? Like, who would you say is your favorite? So I'll go while you guys are thinking. Mine is easily Silvestri. I mean,
Silvestri.
Silvestri is hands down my favorite early image guy. I just love what he puts on the page. Everything bioorganic. I know it was very much of its time, but like that dude, even get back to his Wolverine stuff, just could draw anything. I absolutely adore his stuff.
Yeah. McFarlane for me.
McFarlane.
Yeah, when he's not lazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he's not lazy, there's just some stunning work in the mix. Yep. An example I always love bringing up is Batman Spawn.
Yep.
He took his time on that.
Those were some capes. Those were capes. I'm gonna agree with
McFarlane. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna agree with Tony here because Tony Gilkinson, Jim Lee for me as well, because I had fallen in love with his art style in X-Men, and then of course when I followed him to Image, just Wildcats, and he continued doing that thing that now I think definitely looks very dated. It looks very much of that time period, but I mean, he could just draw characters that looked powerful without compromising other body parts. Unlike I don't want to talk too much about certain other artists who could do like large, powerful figures, but then there was always something that didn't look right. But Jim Lee always kind of looked, even though it was crazy proportions, proportional. That made sense.
It was also
interesting
because you remember, Steve, early in the week when we were looking at some of the variant covers of Action and 50, the Jim Lee cover there's no action in there. It's a snapshot of a very mundane moment in human existence. That it's so I love seeing that from him. I was expecting it would be the pose and
the dynamic pose breaking out of something.
Instead, we got something very different and in a lot of ways more powerful.
And also, he could draw like really sexy dudes, like his Wolverine and his what is the character's name from Wildcats? The short guy.
Imp.
Shoot. Imp. No. Yeah.
Marlowe.
I mean, you just sort of like get these like powerfully built, super hairy dudes chomping cigars, apparently. But anyway, it's just.
But also, I think every Image creator had something to offer.
Yes, they did. Yeah. They did. Even the ones that catch flack today, they absolutely had something. They had something
to offer, and after a point, I think there was this. Of course, I think there were times Larson was aping McFarlane. I think.
Yeah.
I think that's there.
Well, and so did Jim Lee. I mean, Jim Lee completely changed his style. I mean, all of them did. At the end, some of that is just the nature of doing commercial art. Yeah, there was something that was selling 1 million copies.
Right.
Why wouldn't you ape that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Everybody did. They just did it better than most.
At the same token, you had established artists that were changing their styles.
Yeah.
To look like that.
Look at Herb Trimpe on Fantastic Four Unlimited, and you may as well have an RL signature on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes.
So
Yes. Well, in Jim Lee's style,
it worked backwards too, in a sense, just because that's where the marketplace was.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I never thought about who my favorite Image artist was until now.
Yeah.
And
good question.
Point for Point probably was, and I also love early McFarlane, like Infinity Inc., where he's doing that wonderful style with the heads that break up the panels and stuff.
I agree.
Fan, so I love. I mean,
I agree about early McFarlane on Infinity Inc., but I think what unfortunately did him a disservice was the quality of the colors. And some of the printing on some of those issues before they went to sort of more of a prestige or like a premium form, not prestige, but premium format.
The book was always a Baxter book.
But there's some poor
Baxter and Mando. Yeah. You can tell a difference between the first like 2,000 or 3,000 in a run, and then what the plates were doing after, particularly the Mando stuff with the color bleeds.
That's because that's what I'm talking about. Because those are what I saw. I saw a ton of those.
Yeah, so I think that maybe what you're talking about is like, and you can see that with Perez too.
Yeah,
I mean, I have some issues of the Baxter run of New Teen Titans when they rebooted it at 1, and my issues 2 and 4 are exquisite, and 1 and 3 don't look anything like the printing process of 2 and 4. So I think a lot of that had to be, the printing process, and that you had like a kind of, there was a threshold, and then the plates just weren't as effective.
Started to slide or bleed, and because that's actually, I read a ton of Infinity.
The Mando paper stuff, you really see that in some books. You really see that in some books, and that's why they stopped after. I think Crisis on Infinite Earths. I think the first issue or 2 were Mando, and after a point they just time out. We have to.
That's not worth it. I mean, you're ruining the product on a visual medium.
Yeah. which is sad, because I went back and I found a lot of Infinity Inc. From the 80s when I was actually buying back issues in the early 90s, and I loved it because I loved Infinity Inc. so much. But there were so many of those issues that I got where it was just, hey, I love this artist, but man, it looks like somebody kind of took the color and then shifted it over like a 1/4 inch on everything, so everything just looks smeared or out of place or out of focus. Yeah. And it was just so frustrating because that
I think people forget how long his run. He was on that book for 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
it's a long run that he's on that. Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Early McFarlane.
Do you want to talk about another book, or just go on to wrap it up? Because if we do talk about another book, it's real quick.
I'll throw out a quick book if you want.
Why don't we save it for next week, since we are meeting next week? That sound good?
That works.
And maybe we'll do like a little less news. We'll do a little less Geek Gets, and we'll just dive into books.
A little more rock and roll, a little less country, a little more rock and roll.
Okay. Yeah, why not? All right, well, we're going to start wrapping this episode up, and when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears up, we do so with a segment we call the Woofs of the Week segment. In the bear community, if you find a fellow attractive, you woof at him, or maybe you flash your fuzz badge. And
flash my fuzz.
Flash your fuzz badge.
And we do something similar. We woof at things that may be a comic book or a film or a TV program or a charitable initiative. Anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start, as I always do, with Steve. Steve, what is your woof of the week?
My woof of the week, and I think this might be a little bit of a repeat, but it's specific to an episode of this show. Boss, I know you just watched it, but the Dark Side of Comedy's episode on... brain. The episode on Artie Lang last week. Artie Lang, I've always, I think of Artie Lang in 2 modes. First mode, Mad TV. Mad TV, he was the wild, crazy John Belushi of the cast. Had some great, very irreverent characters that you're like, they could never do today. That were really big at the time when he was doing that. And then the second stage of his career, of course, was the Howard Stern Show. And he's always struck me as kind of a buffoon. He's, drug addict and alcoholic and all sorts of crazy stuff and does all these wild things. And in that Howard Stern era, like these kind of larger than life characters that would be on the show that would, just do all these crazy things. I always thought of it as like stunts, just they're doing it for the listeners. They're just doing it to be crazy and outrageous and all that. And Artie Lang just kind of, to me, from what I knew or how I thought about him, was just going on with that because he was just a wild, crazy guy and, went too far with the drugs and everything and then, ruined his career. Dark Side of Comedy, which, again, on Vice TV, the interviews on that episode, the amount of depth they went into in what happened to him, how he was raised, a traumatic experience in his childhood, defining his trajectory in his life. I felt so much sympathy after watching this episode and had actually come to tears a couple times, with some of the interviews, which I was not expecting at all. And it just completely changed my mindset, reset my my view on him as a comedian and as a person. And yes, I know it's a documentary and you can be manipulated that way into feeling a certain way, but it made me examine how I thought of this comedian, this person, in a way that I kind of shocked myself and how much I judged him previously based on what little I know of the tabloid lifestyle. Yeah. But yeah, I totally recommend checking it out if you have a chance. Dark Side of Comedy, the Artie Lang episode. Especially if you're not a fan of his, to just give that a shot and see if maybe there's something you didn't know about him.
Yeah. Artie Lang is actually the same age as I am, and he grew up in New Jersey, and he grew up. So I grew up in Bergen County. A good example of somebody else who's Bergen County as fuck is Stephanie Rule on MSNBC.
Yep.
She is Bergen County as fuck.
Yep.
Okay. You go down, and then so you're going down. You have a little bit of Passaic, you have a little bit of Essex County going down, and then you hit Union County. Artie Lang is Union County as fuck. And actually, my friend Dale from high school was all state in baseball as Artie was, and where Artie was a center fielder, Dale was a catcher. So there's like a tiny little 6 degree of separation there. But I agree. It was a very well done episode. You get this feeling that this is somebody that had strikes against him, but some of those strikes against him were calls that he made himself. Mm-hmm. And especially just the most heartbreaking stuff is seeing some of the later Stern show footage and just how the spiral he's going down.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see that both the people that were interviewed from the Stern Show and from Mad TV were concerned at the right points. He had the other members of the cast engineered that he would not be invited back to Mad TV. Stern Show production facilities basically told him to go home, and he never was allowed to come back.
Yeah.
As a mechanism of keeping him alive, trying to keep him alive. And physically, he's very different now. I won't spoil it if people don't understand that.
Don't know. Yeah.
I also just saw that Roseanne episode just now. Oh, Brett Butler. Oh my God. Oh,
poor Brett Butler. I want to give her a hug.
It's a tough show to watch. But a rewarding episode. So I will definitely agree with you on this one, Steve.
Yeah. So I just wanted to talk about, I know we've mentioned it before as a really cool, entry into the Dark Side series of Vice's documentaries. But the Artie Lang episode. Recommend.
All right, over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your wolf of the week?
So my first little wolf goes out to Steve with this haircut he has going on over here. That's nice. Got a little shaped up. But no, my second my wolf goes out to some local things here in Little Rock, or North Little Rock, I should say, that are happening. Really good friend of mine, friend from college. Her and her husband opened up a local bookstore. It's a used bookstore. You can go in and you can get all kinds of stuff. So look, if you're not into the literary world, you might not know, but independent bookstores are few and far between, and they're very hard to keep afloat. So for young people to engage in this endeavor, to go in there and go all in like they're doing, it's incredibly brave, incredibly bold, and I really appreciate it. Facebook, they also sell online. I think they sell through Amazon, but they sell through a number of ways. But they have a physical store now. You can walk in and you can get all kinds of anything. I walked in and I was like, oh, there's books on presidents. There's books on thermodynamics. There's kids books. There's a book on corn. There was the something book of cock, and it was like chickens. It was all chickens. So really just fun. I mean, it's amazing what these used bookstores will get in and do. Well, I walked in with complete plans on, going to buy something to support the cause, support my friends. But I walk in and I see this shelf, and it's nothing but these hardcovers of. Let me try to hold all these up so you can see them.
Oh my God!
Yeah, no, it's a lot. It's these hardcovers of if you remember the Redwall books by an author named Brian Jacques. It is anthropomorphic mice, squirrels, rodents, very Game of Thrones, but for kids. If you've read Mouse Guard, it's very Mouse Guard, but it's all done in prose. I devoured these books when I was a kid. I've got a ton of them in softcover in another room in a closet somewhere. Had no hardcovers, but Beautywood Books had them on sale for like $5 a piece. So I got all of these hardcovers for $5 pop. So all that to say is my Wolf of the Week goes out to my friends for taking a giant step and doing something amazing, but also to all the independent bookstore owners and operators out there who are just doing fucking rock star work. Like, keep up the good, like, support those folks. I'll go in and I don't know when I'm going to get these read, but I'm still going to go back next week and like buy something because you need that. That is a mark of culture in your community. So, pass by Barnes and Noble. Don't get it off Amazon if you can. Support mom and pop shops and your local bookstores.
And one thing I do 100%. Want to say, I imagine it's the case as you're providing here and the things that I've seen, is the independent bookstores that have survived and the new independent bookstores that are opening have been very focused on community. And they're doing it right. And you would think twice about getting something by saving the $4 of getting it on Amazon and getting it right to your door to actually supporting something local. And I mean, we're all versed in the comic book world, so we're all okay with used. It's important to keep that going. The secondhand nature of some of this stuff, because why shouldn't things be loved more than once? And it sounds like an amazing story and that you have there, Caleb, about that.
It really is cool. And to that end, like, I have a ton of comics and a ton of graphic novels that I don't know if I'll ever read again. And so one of the things I've decided to do is so I'm still part of groups and I'll send stuff to other people who have read them, but there's stuff that I'm just not like, I'm in love with. So I'm going to take them and donate it to them for the resale factor. Hopefully they'll make a profit off of it. It's not costing me anything. I've already read the books. So I'm going to start helping them flush out their graphic novel section and stuff and suggesting things that they can get. So
cool.
All right. My Wolf of the Week goes out to a YouTube channel. The YouTube channel belonging to Doug Helverling. And let me just see if you can get a picture of him here right there. You might be able to see it. Doug is a classical composer. He was a professor up until very recently over at Rider University over here, and is also a choir director and music director, I think, at 2 of the local Lutheran churches. And what he's done is he started this thing, and it took, he's got hundreds of thousands of subscribers now. Again, he's, versed in the classical world, and he gradually started to get back into contemporary music, which he had not touched in years. And, reaction videos, some are fine, most are garbage. Like, listen, here's a 9-year-old listening to White Rabbit for the first, most of them are garbage. His are really something else because, if you want to share the link with that, Steve, that would be great. because again, he comes from the classical background. He has the ear for that. A lot of the music that he is listening to, in many cases for the first time, is prog or metal, so that has another layer on in terms of alignment with classical traditions and conceits. And he's just a big dorky nerdy guy. And some of the videos, especially Painkiller by Priest, which has been part of our episode here, and Renegade by Styx, they're charming as hell. And I hope, since he lives in the next town over, I really hope I get to meet him at some point. But the music stuff falls under the Daily Doug, and there's a Patreon, and there's other things along those lines. But under Doug Heverling's YouTube channel, you can get all that material. So that's my Wolf the Week.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. We're going to wrap this one up now. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram. I was on our Twitter today. Most of the time it's just like a link that's fed directly from Apple Podcasts, but I was actually on there today. Because someone sent something dirty, but
naughty Twitter.
It's good to revisit. Tumblr as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to listen to us, you can do so, as I had just mentioned before, through Apple Podcasts, through Stitcher Radio, and many of the other podcasting platforms. If you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. If you have joined us for our live stream, thank you very much for joining us tonight. If you are watching us delayed on our YouTube channel, thank you very much, and please leave a positive review if you can. Until next time. Oh, look, it's Clark Kent. Until next time. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
You're going to hear Woof and an explosion. We'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Woof. Boom.